Emma and Ryan Carter, a loving couple from Charleston, South Carolina, face an extraordinary challenge when Emma becomes pregnant with septuplets. Despite overwhelming medical, financial, and emotional obstacles, they decide to keep all 7 babies. Guided by faith and love, their journey takes them through harrowing hospital stays, the fragile early lives of their preemies in the NICU, and the unrelenting chaos of caring for 7 infants. Through the ups and downs, they find strength in their love, the support of their community, and the resilience of their children. The story concludes with their triumph, as all 7 babies celebrate their first birthday, and the Carters use their experience to inspire and support other families. This heartwarming tale is a testament to perseverance, hope, and the power of family. What did you think of the Carters' incredible journey? Where are you watching from? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel, DG Story, for more inspiring and captivating stories like this. Emma Carter sat by the large bay window of their small home in Charleston, South Carolina. Outside, the golden hues of the setting sun streamed through the trees, casting playful shadows on the walls. Beside her, Lily, her 4-year-old daughter, was intently coloring a picture of a house with smoke curling up from its chimney. "I'm done, Mommy," Lily chirped, holding up the picture triumphantly. Emma smiled, smoothing her daughter's golden curls. "That's beautiful, sweetheart. One day, our house will be just as warm and lively as your drawing," Emma said, her voice soft and wistful. Her words lingered in the air as she glanced at the empty space in the room. It wasn't that she didn't love their life. Emma adored her family, but she had always dreamed of a bigger one, filled with the laughter of multiple children running through the house. Ryan Carter, her husband, walked in from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a dish towel. "Dinner's ready," he announced, placing the towel on the counter. His tall frame and steady demeanor always gave Emma a sense of security. But tonight, he seemed unusually quiet. Dinner. Emma decided to bring up the topic that had been on her mind for months. "Ryan, don't you think it's time we try for another baby?" she asked, her voice measured but hopeful. Ryan set his fork down, looking at her thoughtfully. "Emma, you know I want to, but can we really handle it? Between work, finances, and making sure Lily gets the attention she needs. Adding another baby might be too much right now." Emma's heart sank a little, but she forced a smile. "I know it's a lot to think about. I feel like our family isn't complete yet." Ryan reached across the table, placing his hand over hers. "Let's not rush into this. Okay, we'll figure it out together." Emma nodded, but as she lay awake that night, the yearning for another child gnawed at her. She couldn't explain it. It wasn't just a desire, it was a need. Months passed, and they decided to start trying for a second child. But as the weeks turned into months, and months into a year, Emma began to grow anxious. Visits to the doctor confirmed what she feared. She had a hormonal imbalance that made conceiving difficult. "It's treatable," the doctor reassured them during one of their appointments. "With the right medication and monitoring, your chances of conceiving will improve." Despite the reassurance, the journey was grueling. Emma endured countless blood tests, hormone injections, and sleepless nights worrying about whether her body could sustain another life. Ryan tried to remain optimistic, but Emma could see the concern in his eyes. Finally, after a year of treatment, Emma felt a flutter of hope when the test turned positive. She waited until dinner to tell Ryan, her hands trembling as she held the pregnancy test behind her back. "Ryan, there's something I want to show you," she said, her voice cracking with emotion. She pulled out the test and handed it to him. Ryan's eyes widened as he processed the result. "Emma, we're having a baby?" Tears streamed down her face as she nodded. "Yes, we're going to have another baby." Lily, sitting at the table, looked up with wide eyes. "I'm going to be a big sister?" Emma scooped her daughter into her arms, her heart full of joy. "Yes, "Sweetheart, you're going to be the best big sister ever." But the celebration was short-lived. At their first ultrasound appointment, the doctor's expression shifted from neutral to something that made Emma's stomach churn. "What's wrong?" she asked, gripping Ryan's hand tightly. The doctor hesitated before replying. "Emma, you're not just pregnant with one baby. You're pregnant with 7. The words hung in the air like an echo in a cavern. "7?" Ryan repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. He turned to the screen where the doctor pointed out the 7 tiny heartbeats flickering in unison. Emma's chest tightened as she stared at the monitor. 7 lives, 7 little miracles. But with each heartbeat, a surge of panic coursed through her veins. "This is extremely rare," the doctor continued, her tone professional but cautious. "A pregnancy like this carries significant risks for both you and the babies. We'll need to monitor you closely, and there are decisions you'll need to consider." Emma nodded numbly, her mind already swirling with questions. But as she left the clinic that day, she felt an overwhelming sense of awe. 7 babies. It wasn't what she had imagined, but it felt like a gift she couldn't refuse. When they got home, Emma and Ryan sat in silence at the kitchen table. Ryan broke the quiet first. "Emma, this is a lot. I mean, how are we going to do this? The risks, the finances, everything. How are we going to make this work?" Emma reached for his hand, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside her. "Ryan, I don't have all the answers, but we've always wanted to grow our family, and now we have the chance to bring 7 lives into the world. Doesn't that feel like a miracle?" Ryan sighed, rubbing his temples. "It does, Emma, but miracles don't pay for diapers or hospital bills." The conversation lingered in their minds as the news spread. First, they only told close family and friends, but in a small town like Charleston, secrets didn't stay hidden for long. Within weeks, Emma's pregnancy became the talk of the town. Neighbors stopped by to congratulate them, their faces a mix of astonishment and curiosity. 7 babies. "Emma, that's incredible," one of them exclaimed, but not everyone was supportive. Online forums buzzed with debates about whether Emma and Ryan were reckless. One anonymous commenter wrote, "They should have thought this through. 7 babies at once? That's irresponsible and selfish." Emma stumbled upon the post late one night, her heart sinking as she read the harsh words. She closed her laptop, tears welling in her eyes. "Ryan, people think we're doing this for attention," she whispered. Ryan pulled her close, his arms a fortress against the negativity. "Let them talk. They don't know us or what we're going through. What matters is what we decide together." But even as he said the words, Ryan's own doubts lingered. At their next appointment, the doctor brought up a topic neither of them had considered: selective reduction. "I need to be honest with you," the doctor began, her expression somber. "Carrying 7 babies is an enormous strain on your body. The risks of preterm labor, preeclampsia, and other complications are extremely high. Selective reduction could improve the chances of survival for the remaining babies and reduce the risks to your health." The room fell silent. Emma's breath hitched, and she clutched Ryan's hand so tightly that her nails dug into his skin. "I don't think I can do that," Emma said finally, her voice breaking. Ryan hesitated, his own fears bubbling to the surface. "Emma, we have to think about you, too. If something happens to you," he trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. "I know it's dangerous," Emma said, her eyes glistening with tears. "But these are our babies. How can I choose which ones get to live and which ones don't?" That night, the weight of the decision pressed heavily on them. Ryan paced the living room, his thoughts racing. Emma sat on the couch, staring at her hands. "Ryan," she said softly, breaking the silence, "I don't know what the future holds, but I believe we're meant to bring these babies into the world. We've always faced challenges together, and we'll face this one, too." Ryan stopped pacing and looked at her, his heart torn between fear and love. He nodded slowly, taking her hands in his. "Okay, he said. "We'll fight for them. All of them." The next day, they informed the doctor of their decision. Though the doctor respected their choice, she didn't sugarcoat the reality. "It's going to be an incredibly difficult journey," she said, "but we'll do everything we can to support you." As Emma and Ryan left the clinic, they knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. But for the first time, they felt united in their resolve. No matter what came next, they would face it together with hope, faith, and the love of their growing family. By the time Emma reached her 12th week of pregnancy, her body was already showing the strain of carrying 7 babies. Her belly had grown noticeably round, far beyond what she had experienced with Lily, and simple tasks like bending down or standing for long periods had become monumental challenges. "I feel like a human balloon," Emma joked to Ryan one evening, trying to keep the mood light. She rested her swollen feet on the coffee table, grimacing slightly as she shifted to find a comfortable position. Ryan chuckled, though his eyes betrayed the worry he tried to mask. "You're glowing," he said, kissing her forehead. "But you need to take it easy. Let me handle things around here." Despite his reassurances, the strain on their family was becoming more apparent. Ryan juggled long hours at work with caring for Lily and helping Emma, who now needed to rest most of the day. Lily, once a cheerful and bubbly child, began to feel the changes in their home. "Mommy, why can't you play with me anymore?" Lily asked one afternoon, her wide blue eyes filled with confusion. Emma's heart broke at the question. She pulled Lily close, stroking her daughter's hair. "Mommy's growing your baby brothers and sisters," she explained gently. "It's a big job, and it makes Mommy very tired. But I promise, I'll always have time for you." Still, Emma couldn't shake the guilt that lingered. She worried that Lily felt neglected, and she fretted over how her absence from daily activities might affect her little girl. At the same time, Emma and Ryan faced mounting challenges from the outside world. The news of their septuplets had spread beyond their small town, and strangers began showing up at their door offering everything from unsolicited advice to outright criticism. One evening, as Emma scrolled through social media, she came across a post that stopped her cold. A parenting blogger with a large following had written a scathing critique of their decision to keep all 7 babies. "This isn't bravery," the post read. "It's reckless. The risks to the mother and the children are astronomical, and they're endangering everyone involved for the sake of pride or attention." Emma's hands trembled as she read the comments below, many of which echoed the blogger's harsh words. She slammed her laptop shut, tears streaming down her face. "What's wrong?" Ryan asked, walking into the room and noticing her distress. "People think we're selfish," Emma said, her voice shaking. "They think we're endangering our babies on purpose, that we're doing this for attention." Ryan sat beside her, pulling her into his arms. "Emma, you can't let them get to you. They don't know us. They don't know the love we have for these babies or the sacrifices we've made." But even as he said it, Ryan couldn't deny the doubts creeping into his own mind. Watching Emma struggle each day, he worried about the toll it was taking on her body and their family. At their next doctor's appointment, those fears deepened. The doctor delivered a sobering update. Emma was at risk for preeclampsia, a potentially life-threatening complication that could endanger both her and the babies. "We're going to monitor you closely," the doctor said, her tone serious. "But I need you to prioritize rest and avoid any unnecessary stress. Every day these babies stay in your womb is critical." Emma nodded, though the reality of bed rest weighed heavily on her. At home, Ryan took on even more responsibilities, managing meals, cleaning, and keeping Lily entertained. Friends and neighbors began dropping off meals and offering to babysit, their kindness a lifeline for the struggling family. One day, their church organized a community fundraiser to support the Carters. Dozens of people showed up, bringing diapers, baby clothes, and donations to help cover medical expenses. "I don't know how to thank you all," Emma said, her voice choked with emotion as she addressed the crowd. "Your support means more to us than words can express." It's because of you that we feel strong enough to keep going. Despite the outpouring of support, the road ahead was fraught with uncertainty. By her 20th week, Emma's belly had grown so large that even walking short distances left her breathless. She felt like her body was at its breaking point, and yet she knew the babies needed every extra day they could get. At one of her weekly checkups, the doctor's face grew serious as she reviewed Emma's vitals. "Emma, I need to admit you to the hospital," she said. "Your blood pressure is dangerously high, and we need to keep you under close observation." The news hit Emma like a tidal wave. Being confined to a hospital room meant she wouldn't be able to see Lily as often, and the thought of being separated from her family filled her with dread. That evening, as Ryan helped her pack a bag, Emma broke down in tears. "I feel like I'm failing everyone," she sobbed. "I'm not there for Lily. I'm not there for you. And now I'm stuck in a hospital while you handle everything alone." Ryan knelt in front of her, taking her hands in his. "Emma, you're not failing anyone. You're doing the most important job of all, keeping our babies safe. Lily and I are okay. We've got this." But as Emma lay in her hospital bed that night, staring at the sterile white ceiling, she couldn't shake the fear that had taken root in her heart. Every day felt like a fragile balancing act, and the stakes had never been higher. By the 27th week of Emma's pregnancy, the hospital room had become her world. Machines beeped rhythmically beside her bed, and nurses came and went in a constant stream, monitoring her vitals and the 7 tiny lives growing inside her. Each day felt like a small victory, inching the babies closer to viability. But the tension was ever present. Ryan visited every evening after work, often bringing Lily along to brighten Emma's spirits. "Mommy, look what I made," Lily exclaimed one evening, holding up a crayon drawing of their family, complete with 7 tiny stick figures. Emma's heart swelled as she pulled her daughter close. "That's beautiful, sweetheart. You're going to be the best big sister ever." But even Lily's visits couldn't erase the shadow of fear that loomed over Emma. The doctors had been clear. Carrying all 7 babies to term was impossible. They were doing everything they could to prolong the pregnancy, but the risks were mounting. The breaking point came in the early hours of a quiet Thursday morning. Emma woke to a sharp, stabbing pain in her abdomen, unlike anything she had felt before. Her breaths came in shallow gasps as she fumbled for the call button. Within minutes, the room was a flurry of activity. Nurses surrounded her, checking monitors and administering medication, while Emma clutched her belly, her face contorted in pain. "Ryan," she whispered weakly as the nurses prepared to wheel her into the operating room. A nurse stepped out to call Ryan, who arrived at the hospital within minutes, his face pale and stricken. "What's happening? Is she okay?" he demanded as he rushed down the hallway. The doctor met him at the door. "Emma is experiencing signs of placental abruption," she explained grimly. "We need to perform an emergency C-section now. There's no time to wait." Ryan felt his legs go weak as the weight of the situation hit him. "What are the risks?" he asked, his voice trembling. "There are risks to both Emma and the babies," the doctor said. "We'll do everything we can, but it's a very complex procedure." Ryan was ushered into a sterile room, where he was handed a surgical gown and mask. Moments later, he stood outside the operating room, staring through the glass as his wife was prepped for surgery. Inside, Emma fought to stay calm as the team worked around her. Her mind raced with 1,000 thoughts. Would the babies be okay? Would she survive this? Would Ryan be able to handle everything if she didn't make it? As the anesthesia took effect, Emma whispered a prayer. "Please, let us all make it through this." The operation began in tense silence, broken only by the hum of machines and the quiet commands exchanged between the surgeons. The first baby was delivered within minutes. A tiny boy, no larger than a loaf of bread. His faint cry filled the room, drawing a collective sigh of relief from the team. "That's baby A," the nurse announced. "Stable. Moving to the NICU." One by one, the babies were delivered, Each was whisked away by a designated team of specialists who worked tirelessly to stabilize them. Ryan watched from the doorway, his hands gripping the frame so tightly that his knuckles turned white. By the time the seventh baby, a little girl, was delivered, the room was a symphony of activity. The doctor breathed a small sigh of relief. "All 7 are out," she announced. "Let's focus on stabilizing Emma." But Emma's body had reached its limit. Her blood pressure plummeted, and she began hemorrhaging. The team worked frantically to control the bleeding, administering transfusions and medication. Outside, Ryan paced the hallway, his thoughts racing. He prayed silently, his voice cracking with desperation. "Please, God, let her be okay. Let the babies be okay. I can't lose her. I can't do this without her." After what felt like an eternity, the doctor emerged from the operating room, her expression guarded but not grim. "Emma is stable for now," she said. "It was touch and go, but we managed to stop the bleeding. She'll be moved to the ICU for close monitoring." Relief washed over Ryan, but it was tinged with the weight of uncertainty. "And the babies?" he asked, his voice shaking. "They're in the NICU," the doctor replied. "They're very fragile, but they're fighters." Ryan was allowed to see Emma briefly before she was moved to the ICU. She looked pale and exhausted, but her eyes fluttered open when he sat beside her. "Ryan," she murmured, her voice barely audible. "Are they okay?" "They're okay," he said, tears streaming down his face. "You're okay. We're going to get through this." That evening, Ryan visited the NICU for the first time. The sight before him was both heartwarming and heartbreaking. Each baby lay in a tiny incubator, their bodies covered in translucent skin and connected to a web of tubes and monitors. The nurse on duty greeted him with a gentle smile. "They're strong little fighters," she said. "We're doing everything we can to help them grow and thrive." Ryan moved from incubator to incubator, his heart swelling with love and fear. He placed a hand on the glass of Baby A's incubator, his voice barely above a whisper. "Hey, buddy, you've got this. You've got 6 brothers and sisters waiting for you." By the time he reached Baby G, the youngest, tears streamed down his face. "You're all so small," he said, his voice cracking, "but you're already so strong." When he returned to Emma's room that night, he held her hand tightly, vowing to himself that he would do whatever it took to keep their family together. The days following the delivery were a blur of exhaustion and anxiety. Emma remained in the ICU, her body struggling to recover from the trauma of the emergency C-section. Ryan divided his time between her room and the NICU, where their 7 babies were fighting for their lives. Each baby had been given a letter as a placeholder name, Baby A through Baby G. Ryan found himself repeating the names in his head like a mantra as he moved between their incubators, watching the tiny figures covered in wires and tubes. "Baby A is holding steady," one of the nurses informed him during his second visit. "He's on a ventilator, but his oxygen levels are good." Ryan nodded, his chest tightening as he glanced at Baby A's frail form. "And the others?" "Most are stable," she said cautiously. "But Baby C and Baby G are the smallest and the most at risk. It's going to be a long road, Mr. Carter." Later that evening, Emma was moved from the ICU to a recovery ward. When Ryan visited her, he found her sitting up in bed, pale but alert. "How are the babies?" she asked, her voice trembling with equal parts fear and hope. "They're holding on," Ryan replied, sitting beside her and taking her hand. "The nurses are amazing, Emma. They're doing everything they can." Emma's eyes welled with tears. "I should be there with them. I should be holding them, comforting them." "You will," Ryan said firmly, "but you need to get better first. They need you strong." The following week was a roller coaster of emotions. Baby B, a boy they decided to name Oliver, made a small but significant milestone when he began to breathe on his own for the first time. The news brought a glimmer of hope to the weary couple. "They're fighters, Emma," Ryan said, showing her a picture of Oliver in his incubator. "Just like you." But the joy was short-lived. 2 days later, the doctors informed them that baby G, the youngest and smallest of the septuplets, had developed a serious infection. "We're administering antibiotics and doing everything we can," the doctor explained. "But at this stage, her immune system is incredibly fragile." Emma's heart shattered at the news. She begged the nurses to let her visit baby G, despite her own weakened state. After some discussion, the medical team agreed, wheeling her into the NICU in a chair. When Emma saw baby G, whom they had named Grace, her breath caught in her throat. The tiny girl was no bigger than her hand, her chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. Emma reached out, her fingers trembling, and gently placed her hand on the incubator. "Hi, Grace," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You're so strong, my little fighter. Mommy's here now, and I'm not going anywhere." Over the next few days, Emma and Ryan spent as much time as possible in the NICU. They learned to decipher the beeping monitors, the fluctuations in oxygen levels, and the subtle changes in their baby's conditions. One evening, as Ryan sat beside baby C's incubator, a nurse named Linda approached him. "You're doing great," she said, her voice kind. Ryan looked up, his eyes weary. "It doesn't feel like it. I feel like I'm failing them. I can't do anything but sit here and watch." Linda placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "You're doing more than you realize. Just being here, talking to them, holding their hands, it makes a difference. They know you're here." That night, Ryan returned to Emma's room and shared Linda's words with her. It gave them both a renewed sense of purpose. They might not be able to control everything, but they could be there for their children, offering them love and hope. As the weeks went on, the babies began to show small signs of progress. Baby A, now officially named Ethan, was taken off his ventilator. Baby D, a girl they named Isla, started gaining weight steadily. Even baby G, against all odds, began to respond to treatment for her infection. The road ahead was still daunting. The doctors warned them that complications could arise at any moment, and the babies would likely face developmental challenges due to their extreme prematurity. But for Emma and Ryan, each tiny victory felt like a miracle. One evening, Emma held Oliver for the first time. A nurse carefully placed the fragile baby in her arms, guiding her on how to support his head and body. "He's so small," Emma whispered, overwhelmed by the moment. "But he's here," Ryan said, sitting beside her. "And so are we." As the days turned into weeks, the Carters began to settle into a grueling routine. Emma, though still recovering, spent her mornings in the NICU, moving from one incubator to the next, whispering soft reassurances to her babies. Ryan continued to juggle work, household responsibilities, and hospital visits, often running on little more than coffee and determination. The NICU staff became like an extended family, guiding Emma and Ryan through the labyrinth of neonatal care. Each nurse seemed to have a knack for lifting their spirits just when they needed it most. One morning, as Emma gently stroked baby D's hand through the incubator, Nurse Linda approached with a clipboard. "Good news," she said with a smile. "Isla is gaining weight steadily. If this keeps up, we might be able to move her out of the incubator soon." Emma felt a wave of relief wash over her. "That's amazing," she whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. But while Isla and a few of the others were making progress, baby G Grace continued to struggle. Her weight gain was slow, and she often needed extra oxygen. "Grace is a fighter," Ryan would say every night as he sat beside her incubator. "Just like her mom." At 5 weeks old, baby Ethan was the first to be cleared for discharge. The news was a bittersweet milestone. While Emma and Ryan were thrilled to bring their son home, they knew it marked the beginning of a new set of challenges. Their home, once quiet and organized, quickly became a whirlwind of activity. The dining room was converted into a temporary nursery, to avoid multiple trips up and down the stairs. Diapers, bottles, and burp cloths seemed to multiply overnight. Emma quickly realized that caring for Ethan alone was an entirely different challenge than the NICU. Without the constant hum of monitors and the watchful eyes of nurses, she felt a mixture of freedom and fear. "Ryan, I'm scared," she admitted one evening as they prepared Ethan's bottle. "What if I miss something? What if he needs help and I don't notice in time?" Ryan placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You're doing great, Emma. We'll figure this out together, just like we always do." Despite his words, the stress of their new reality began to show. Ryan often worked late into the night to cover the mounting medical bills, leaving Emma to manage Ethan and her own recovery. Word of the Carter situation spread throughout the neighborhood, sparking an outpouring of support. Their church organized a meal train, ensuring the family had warm dinners each night. Neighbors took turns babysitting Lily, who relished the extra attention. One Saturday, a group of volunteers arrived unannounced, armed with cleaning supplies and tools. "We thought you could use a hand," one of them said, rolling up his sleeves. Emma was overwhelmed by their kindness. "I don't know how to thank you," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Just focus on those babies." Another volunteer replied with a smile. As more of the septuplets were cleared to come home, Isla and Oliver followed soon after. Their small house became a hive of activity. Emma and Ryan developed a system that resembled a military operation. Feeding schedules posted on the fridge, shifts for diaper changes, and a triage station in the living room where the babies were weighed and monitored. Despite their best efforts, the chaos occasionally became overwhelming. One evening, as Emma fed Isla while Ryan changed Ethan's diaper, the shrill cry of a monitor startled them both. Baby G. Grace was struggling to breathe. Ryan immediately called the pediatrician while Emma held Grace, her heart pounding. "Come on, sweet girl," she whispered, gently patting Grace's back. The doctor instructed them to bring Grace to the hospital immediately. Ryan drove as fast as he could while Emma sat in the back seat, cradling Grace and praying silently. At the hospital, the medical team worked quickly to stabilize her. "She's developed a respiratory infection," the doctor explained. "It's common in preemies, but it's serious. We'll need to keep her here for observation." Emma and Ryan spent the night in the hospital waiting room, holding each other for comfort. "She's going to be okay," Ryan said, though his voice wavered. "She has to be." The next morning, the doctor delivered hopeful news. "Grace is responding well to treatment," he said. "She's not out of the woods yet, but she's a fighter." Hearing those words, Emma felt a surge of determination. "So are we," she said, gripping Ryan's hand. The weeks that followed were marked by sleepless nights and endless worry, but there were also moments of pure joy. Lily, who had once felt sidelined, took pride in her role as a big sister. She would sit beside the babies, singing lullabies and handing Emma diapers with a flourish. One evening, as Emma sat on the couch surrounded by her babies, she noticed something extraordinary. Ethan and Oliver were lying side by side, their tiny hands reaching for each other. Isla cooed softly from her bassinet, and Lily giggled as she wiggled a stuffed animal in front of Grace. Ryan walked in, carrying a tray of bottles, and stopped in his tracks. "Look at them," he said, his voice filled with awe. Emma smiled through her exhaustion. "There are little miracles." Despite the chaos, the Carters began to find their rhythm. They knew the road ahead would be long and challenging, but with each passing day, they felt more confident that they could face it together. By the time 5 of the septuplets had come home, the Carter household felt like a whirlwind. The dining room nursery overflowed with bassinets and diaper pails, and the once quiet living room was now a bustling hub of feeding schedules, changing stations, and baby cries that seemed to echo endlessly. For Emma and Ryan, life had become a delicate balancing act. Every moment of their day was spoken for, from the pre-dawn feedings to the late-night diaper runs. Even with the help of their neighbors and church community, The couple found themselves teetering on the edge of exhaustion. One evening, Emma sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by unopened bills. She ran her fingers through her hair, feeling the weight of the mounting expenses. Hospital fees, formula, diapers, it all added up faster than they could have imagined. Ryan walked in, his shirt wrinkled and his face drawn from another long day at work. He set down his briefcase and kissed Emma's forehead. "Rough day?" he asked gently. Emma sighed, sliding a particularly large medical bill across the table. "This one came in today," she said. "I don't know how we're going to keep up." Ryan stared at the bill for a long moment before speaking. "I've been thinking, maybe I could take on some freelance work. It'll mean longer hours, but it could help us stay afloat." Emma's heart ached at the thought of Ryan taking on even more. "You're already working so hard, Ryan. I don't want you to burn out." "We don't have much of a choice," he replied, his voice steady but tired. "We have 7 little lives depending on us." While Emma and Ryan focused on the septuplets, Lily began to feel the strain of being the older sibling to so many babies. Once the center of her parents' world, she now found herself competing for their attention. One afternoon, as Emma rocked Grace to sleep, Lily walked into the nursery clutching a drawing. "Mommy, look what I made," she said, holding up a colorful picture of a princess castle. "That's beautiful, sweetheart," Emma said absent-mindedly, her eyes fixed on Grace's fluttering eyelids. Lily's shoulders slumped. "You didn't even look," she muttered, her voice tinged with frustration. Emma looked up, guilt washing over her. She reached out to pull Lily close, but the little girl pulled away. "You don't have time for me anymore," Lily said, tears brimming in her eyes. Emma's heart broke. That evening, after the babies were asleep, she and Ryan sat down to talk. "I think Lily's feeling left out," Emma said. "We need to find a way to give her more attention." Ryan nodded. "How about we plan a special day? Just for her? No babies, no distractions, just the 3 of us." The following weekend, they took Lily to her favorite park. They played on the swings, shared ice cream, and listened as Lily told them about her imaginary adventures. By the end of the day, her smile was as bright as it had ever been. "Thank you, Mommy. Thank you, Daddy," she said, hugging them both tightly. Emma and Ryan exchanged a glance, silently promising to make more time for their firstborn. As the Carters navigated their new reality, the public's fascination with their story continued to grow. Local newspapers published updates about the septuplets, and their story even caught the attention of national media. While many people were supportive, there were also those who were less kind. Social media buzzed with debates about whether Emma and Ryan's decision to keep all 7 babies was responsible. "They're just attention seekers." One comment read, "No one needs 7 kids at once." Emma tried to ignore the negativity, but one particularly harsh critique from a parenting blog left her shaken. "This isn't bravery," the post claimed. "It's selfishness disguised as faith." That evening, as Ryan washed bottles in the kitchen, he found Emma sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone with tears in her eyes. "Hey," he said gently, sitting beside her. "What's wrong?" "People think we're selfish," Emma said, her voice breaking. "They think we're putting our kids at risk for attention." Ryan took her phone and set it aside. "Emma, those people don't know us. They don't know how hard we've fought for these babies or how much we love them. Let them say what they want. What matters is what we do for our family." Despite his reassurances, the criticism weighed heavily on both of them. To counter the negativity, Emma decided to share their journey in their own words. She started a family blog, posting updates about the baby's progress, the challenges they faced, and the small victories they celebrated. "This is who we are," she wrote in her first post. "We're not perfect, and this hasn't been easy, but every day, we wake up and fight for our family. These babies are our miracles, and we wouldn't change a thing." The blog quickly gained traction. attracting messages of support from parents around the world. One letter, in particular, stood out. It was from a mother in Ohio who had recently given birth to premature twins. "Your story gave me hope on my hardest days." The letter read, "Thank you for showing me that miracles can happen, even when the odds feel impossible." Emma kept the letter in her bedside drawer, reading it whenever doubt or exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her. One evening, as the house finally fell silent, Emma and Ryan sat together on the couch, surrounded by piles of baby clothes and empty bottles. "I don't know how we're doing this," Emma admitted, leaning her head on Ryan's shoulder. "But somehow, we are." Ryan chuckled softly. "Because we're stubborn," he said, wrapping an arm around her. "And because we love them, every single one of them." As they sat there, listening to the soft hum of the baby monitors, Emma felt a renewed sense of purpose. They might be stretched thin, but they were still standing together. As the septuplets grew stronger, the Carter household began to shift from survival mode to a rhythm that, while chaotic, felt almost normal. Ethan, Oliver, and Isla were thriving at home, while Grace and the others continued to make progress in the NICU. One crisp autumn morning, Emma bundled up Ethan and Isla for their first trip outside. The golden leaves rustled in the breeze as Emma settled the babies into a double stroller, her heart swelling with pride. "Ready for your big adventure?" she whispered, kissing Isla's forehead. Lily skipped alongside them as they walked to the park. For the first time in months, Emma felt a sense of peace. Neighbors waved and smiled, offering kind words about how well the babies were doing. But life wasn't without its challenges. Despite the milestones the septuplets were reaching, there were constant reminders of how fragile their health still was. One evening, as Emma prepared bottles in the kitchen, the baby monitor emitted a high-pitched alarm. She rushed into the nursery to find Oliver struggling to breathe. "Ryan!" she screamed, panic flooding her voice. Ryan bolted in, his face pale as he took in the sight of Oliver's shallow, labored breaths. They quickly administered the emergency oxygen kit that the hospital had sent home with them, praying it would stabilize him. Within minutes, Oliver's breathing evened out, but the scare left both parents shaken. "What if we hadn't been here?" Emma said, her voice trembling. "What if we'd missed the signs?" Ryan placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "We didn't miss it, Emma. We were here, and we acted. That's what matters." After 3 months in the NICU, baby G. Grace was finally strong enough to come home. Emma and Ryan had been preparing for this moment, but nothing could have prepared them for the overwhelming emotions of seeing all 7 babies under one roof. When they arrived home from the hospital, Lily ran to greet them, her face alight with excitement. "Is she here? Is Grace home?" Emma knelt down, holding Grace securely in her arms. "Yes, sweetie, she's home." Lily leaned in, her voice barely a whisper. "Hi, Grace. I'm your big sister." That night, Emma and Ryan stood together in the nursery, looking at the 7 bassinets lined up side by side. The soft sounds of the baby's breathing filled the room, a peaceful contrast to the chaos they had endured. "We did it," Emma said, tears welling in her eyes. Ryan wrapped his arms around her. "No, you did it," he replied. "You carried them, you fought for them, and you brought them home." As news of the septuplets' journey spread, the Carters found themselves thrust into the public eye once again. Local reporters asked to interview them, and social media buzzed with updates on the miracle family. One day, Emma received an email from a major morning talk show inviting them to appear. "They want us to share our story," she told Ryan, reading the message aloud. Ryan frowned, hesitant. "Do you think it's a good idea? We've already dealt with so much scrutiny." Emma considered his words. "I think it could be a chance to show people the reality of what we've been through. Maybe it could help other families who feel overwhelmed." After much deliberation, they agreed to the interview. On the day of the broadcast, they sat together on a brightly lit stage, surrounded by photos of the babies. The host smiled warmly as she introduced them. The Carters have become an inspiration to families everywhere, but their journey hasn't been without challenges. Emma and Ryan shared their story, from the early days of the pregnancy to the sleepless nights at home. They spoke candidly about the criticism they'd faced and the moments they doubted themselves. "What kept you going through it all?" the host asked. Emma looked at Ryan, then at the camera. "Love," she said simply. "Love for each other, love for our children, and faith that we were meant to be a family." The response to the interview was overwhelmingly positive. Messages poured in from parents around the world, many of whom found hope and strength in the Carters' story. With all 7 babies finally home, the Carters began to adjust to their new reality. Emma and Ryan established a system that allowed them to tackle the endless cycle of feedings, diaper changes, and laundry. Lily, too, found her place in the bustling household. She took pride in her role as the biggest sister, helping to soothe crying babies and organizing their tiny clothes. One evening, as Emma sat on the couch with Grace in her arms, she looked around the room. Ryan was rocking Ethan to sleep. Lily was singing a lullaby to Isla, and Oliver and the others were resting peacefully in their bassinets. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt a sense of completeness. Their journey had been anything but easy, but it had brought them closer together as a family. "Look at us," she said softly to Ryan. "We're a team." Ryan smiled, his eyes filled with pride. The best team. As the months passed, the Carters began to find a rhythm in their chaotic life. Yet, even as the babies grew stronger, life continued to throw challenges their way. One particularly tough winter night, Grace developed a high fever. Emma and Ryan's hearts sank as they realized she was struggling to breathe. Without hesitation, they bundled her up and rushed her to the emergency room, navigating icy roads with white knuckles and pounding hearts. At the hospital, the doctor diagnosed Grace with a severe respiratory infection. "Her immune system is still fragile," the doctor explained, "but you caught it early, and that's critical." Grace was admitted for observation, and Emma refused to leave her side, even as exhaustion gnawed at her. Ryan stayed home with the other 6 babies, juggling feedings and diaper changes while trying to comfort a confused and worried Lily. "Is Grace going to be okay?" Lily asked one night, her voice trembling. Ryan knelt down and hugged her tightly. "She's in good hands, sweetheart. The doctors are taking care of her, and Mommy's with her. Grace is strong, just like you." Grace's hospitalization was a sobering reminder of how fragile their situation remained. After a week of treatment, she was finally discharged, much to the family's relief. But the incident left Emma and Ryan grappling with lingering fears. "We're doing everything we can," Emma said one night as they sat together in the quiet nursery. "But what if it's not enough?" Ryan took her hand, his grip firm and steady. "It is enough, Emma. We're enough. We've made it this far, and we'll keep fighting for them." Despite the setbacks, the babies continued to hit milestones that filled the Carters with joy. Ethan was the first to crawl, his chubby arms and legs propelling him across the living room rug while Lily cheered him on. "Go, Ethan, go," she squealed, clapping her hands. Not long after, Isla began to babble, her tiny voice filling the house with joyful sounds. "Dada," she said one evening, reaching for Ryan with a toothless grin. Ryan's eyes filled with tears as he scooped her up. "That's right, Isla, Dada's here." Each milestone, no matter how small, felt like a triumph. For Emma and Ryan, it was proof that their sacrifices and sleepless nights were worth it. But as the babies grew, so did the pressures on the family. The medical bills continued to pile up, and Ryan's long hours at work began to take a toll on his health. He came home one evening pale and exhausted, collapsing onto the couch without even removing his shoes. "You need to slow down," Emma said, sitting beside him and placing a hand on his shoulder. Ryan shook his head. "We can't afford for me to slow down, Emma. The bills aren't going to pay themselves." Emma's heart ached as she watched him push himself to the brink. She knew they couldn't keep going like this, but she didn't know how to lighten the load. Around the same time, Emma noticed that Lily had started acting out. The normally cheerful little girl became withdrawn and irritable, her frustration bubbling over into tantrums. One afternoon, as Emma tried to soothe a crying Isla, Lily stomped into the room and shouted, "You care more about them than you care about me." Emma froze, her heart breaking at the words. She set Isla down carefully and knelt in front of Lily. "Sweetheart, that's not true," she said softly. "I love you just as much as I love your brothers and sisters. You're my first baby, and you'll always have a special place in my heart." Lily sniffled, tears streaming down her face. "But you're always so busy. Mommy, I miss you." Emma hugged her tightly, vowing to carve out more time for her eldest child. That evening, she and Ryan sat down to reevaluate their priorities. "We can't keep running ourselves into the ground," Emma said, "and we can't let Lily feel like she's being left behind." Ryan nodded, his face weary but determined. "You're right. Let's figure out a way to make this work. For all of us." In the midst of their struggles, the Carters received a surprising offer. A national charity organization, inspired by their story, reached out to provide financial assistance and resources for families with multiples. "We've been following your journey," the representative said during a phone call. "Your resilience and love are an inspiration. We'd like to help ease some of your burden." The charity support included covering a portion of the medical bills and providing a year's supply of diapers and formula. For Emma and Ryan, felt like a lifeline. "I don't know how to thank you," Emma said, tears of gratitude streaming down her face. "You've already thanked us," the representative replied, "by showing the world what it means to never give up." With the financial pressure slightly eased, the Carters began to focus more on their family's emotional well-being. Ryan scaled back his hours at work, and Emma started a weekly tradition of Lily time, where she and Lily would bake cookies, read stories, or go to the park together. Slowly but surely, the family began to find a balance. One quiet evening, as the babies slept and Lily dozed on the couch, Emma and Ryan sat on the porch, sipping tea and watching the stars. "We've come a long way," Ryan said, his voice filled with wonder. Emma nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. "And we still have a long way to go. But for the first time in a while, I feel like we're going to be okay." Ryan reached for her hand, lacing his fingers through hers. "We're more than okay. We're stronger than ever." The first birthday of the septuplets arrived with a mix of celebration and reflection. Emma and Ryan stood in the living room, watching as their once fragile babies, now thriving toddlers, explored their surroundings. The dining table was adorned with 7 tiny cakes, each one decorated with a single candle. "Are we really doing this 7 times?" Ryan joked, carrying a tray of party hats. Emma laughed, her eyes sparkling with joy. "If we survived the first year, we can handle this." Lily danced around the room, helping place party hats on her siblings' heads. She had blossomed into her role as the big sister, proudly taking charge of small tasks and earning the nickname Mommy's Little Helper. As friends, neighbors, and the NICU nurses who had cared for the babies gathered to celebrate, Emma looked around the room, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Happy birthday, my little miracles," she whispered, kissing each baby on the forehead. During the party, one of the guests, a local journalist who had covered their story early on, asked Emma if she had any regrets about their journey. Emma paused, glancing at Ryan, who gave her an encouraging nod. "It's been the hardest year of our lives," she admitted. "There were moments when we doubted ourselves, moments when we were scared we wouldn't make it. But every challenge, every sleepless night, was worth it to see these 7 little faces smiling back at us." "I wouldn't change a thing," Ryan chimed in, holding Grace, the smallest but fiercest of the septuplets. "This year taught us that love and determination can carry you through anything. These kids are proof that even when the odds are stacked against you, miracles can happen." The journalist nodded thoughtfully. And what's next for the Carter family? Emma smiled. We're taking it one day at a time. But our story isn't just about us. We want to use our experience to help other families who are facing their own challenges. If we can give hope to even one person, then everything we've been through has a purpose. As the party wound down and the guests began to leave, Ryan and Emma tucked the babies into their cribs one by one. The house, once bustling with noise, now settled into a peaceful hush. Emma leaned against the doorframe of the nursery, watching the gentle rise and fall of her baby's chests. "It's hard to believe we made it here," she said quietly. Ryan wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. "It's because of you, Emma. You never gave up, even when it felt impossible." She shook her head, smiling through tears. "We did this together. I couldn't have done it without you." The couple stepped outside onto the porch, the cool night air wrapping around them. The stars above seemed brighter than usual, as if celebrating the triumph of their family. Ryan glanced at Emma, a mischievous grin spreading across his face. "So, when are we going for number 8? Emma laughed, playfully swatting his arm. "Don't even joke about that, Ryan Carter." But as they stood there, hand in hand, they knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, stronger, wiser, and with a family full of love. Months later, Emma and Ryan launched a foundation dedicated to supporting families with multiples and preemies. Their blog had grown into a platform where parents could share their stories, seek advice, and find encouragement. In their first public address as co-founders, Emma stood before a crowd, her voice steady but emotional. "Our journey wasn't easy," she began, "but it taught us that even in the hardest moments, love and faith can carry you through. To every parent out there facing the impossible, you are not alone. Miracles happen every day, and they are worth fighting for." The crowd erupted in applause, and Emma felt a wave of fulfillment wash over her. Their story had come full circle, transforming from one of struggle into one of hope. Back at home, as the sun set on another day, Emma and Ryan sat on the porch, listening to the soft hum of baby monitors. Their family was far from ordinary, but it was theirs, a testament to resilience, love, and the miracles that life could bring.